Chris Allingham with the Virtual Weber Bullet. Has this ever happened to you? You've used your Weber Smokey Mountain Cooker, you left it outside overnight, maybe it rained overnight, and you found water down in the charcoal bowl at the bottom of your smoker, and you wonder why that happens. There was recently a comment on my YouTube channel from a viewer who said, you know, I like a lot of things about the Smokey Mountain Cooker, but the one thing I really don't like is the fact that the lid fits into, where's the lid? There's the lid. The lid fits into the middle cooking section. It doesn't overlap it, and therefore water gets inside, and I really don't like that design. Well, let's talk about why that is the way it is. And first of all, let me just turn around real quick. So here's a shot of the lid as it engages with the middle cooking section. You can see here that the lid comes down like this, and it has the rolled edge, and it goes inside the middle cooking section. It sits on a flat spot at the top of the middle section. So this goes inside the middle section, and if any water hits the outside of this, it will go into this gap, and then it will enter the cooker on the middle section, and then it will go down the inside wall and collect in the bottom of the charcoal bowl. And oftentimes people will say, well, you know, I found like a lake in the bottom of my cooker because of that, if there was a heavy rain. So it can be a problem for people. So why in the world did Weber do it this way? Well, the first thing to understand is that when Weber designed this product back in 1981, it was kind of a quick and dirty project. I had a chance to meet Eric Schlosser. He was the man who essentially designed the Weber Smokey Mountain Cooker back in those days. He was an engineer at Weber. I think of him as the father of the Weber Smokey Mountain Cooker. And when I met him in 2008, he told me that this was really kind of a quick and dirty project. They were trying to use as many existing parts as they could. They didn't want to retool parts if they didn't have to, because it was very expensive to tool up those stamp machines that they used to stamp out the lids and the bowl. So they were trying to reuse things as best they could. And so what they did is they used the charcoal bowl from an 18.5-inch Weber kettle as not only the charcoal bowl for the Smokey Mountain Cooker, but also for the lid. And so that resulted in having two identical parts at the top and the bottom. All they had to do was they had to just stamp a little differently in the lid for one vent damper instead of multiples like they might have in the charcoal bowl. And they'd have to, of course, weld the handle on top. And later, of course, they added a place for the thermometer back in 2008, 2009. But that also gave them more height in this lid because, as you know, a kettle lid is more flat. So they got a lot more headroom in here when they used a charcoal bowl as a lid. The downside, though, was that the edge of this lid, as I mentioned, has a rolled edge. It doesn't have the flared edge that a Weber kettle has. And if you've got a Weber kettle or ever seen one, you know that the lid is relatively flat, and then at the edge it comes down, and then it bumps out a little bit flat, and then it goes down. So it does fit over the charcoal bowl for any of the Weber kettles, whether it's Smokey Joe all the way up to the ranch kettle. So Weber reused the charcoal bowl from the 18.5-inch kettle for the lid and the charcoal bowl of the smoker, and then they also reused the water pan was the lid from a 14.5-inch Smokey Joe. So those are the three big parts they were able to reuse when making the Smokey Mountain Cooker. They did have to fabricate from scratch the middle cooking section. They had to fabricate the charcoal ring. They had to fabricate the grill straps and the legs and the access door. But even the original access door had a knob that came from the hardware store, Eric Schlosser told me. So they really tried to do it on a shoestring budget as best they could. As a result, though, since they had this kettle charcoal bowl as lid with the rounded edge, it really didn't fit neatly and perfectly over a middle section. So they put a flat section on the top of the middle cooking section to engage the rounded edge of the lid, and that's why we have what we have. So, you know, perhaps if Weber had been willing to invest in a new stamping tool to make this lid, perhaps they would have considered making it overlap and having a different design for the middle section, but they didn't do that back in the day, and we have what we have. Now, the other thing about this, though, that I've always thought is a pretty smart reason for doing it the way they did it, is because of this very thing we talked about, the way that liquid interacts with the lid. You think about this as being a water smoker with a water pan with a gallon or more of water inside, and a lot of fatty meat that gets very gives off a lot of grease and a lot of condensation as the cooking process proceeds. You get a lot of water collection inside the cooker when you're operating it. That condensation collects on the inside of the lid. It's got to go somewhere. And if the lid overlapped the outside, it would actually exit the cooker and run down the outside of the cooker. The way it's designed, the water collects on the inside of the lid and it runs down the inside of the middle cooking section. In fact, even in a non-rainy condition, you may have sometimes noticed that there's a little bit of moisture in the bottom of your Smoky Mountain cooker. You may see that the charcoal is actually a little bit damp in certain places because liquid has rolled down the inside of the cooker. So I'm not sure we should wish that the lid actually overlapped the middle cooking section because we might have a mess outside the cooker rather than inside the cooker. So what do you do to prevent this from happening? Well, first of all, if you can move your Weber Smokey Mountain Cooker out of the rain, that's the best way to do it. So if you have a covered patio or you can move it into a garage after you've used it, protect it from the weather, that's your best answer. Putting on the cover is not enough because, as you've noticed, the cover, even if on, doesn't keep water out because the cover has seams in it. The seams are not sealed. So there is a way you can seal those seams, and I've got a link to that to my FAQ. I can link that for you and show you what that's about. Basically putting in sort of like a tent seam sealer on the inside seams of the cover to try to keep water out. That's kind of a lot of work. You're probably better off to actually put something over the cover that really keeps water out. I have used a very large yard waste bag. You can't get one big enough that I'm aware of, at least for the 22-inch smoker, but you can certainly get them for the 18.5 and the 14.5-inch smokers. Just put a big yard waste bag over the cover and you will keep water out of your cooker for sure. If that tends to want to blow away in the wind, you can put a bungee around it to hold it in place. For the 22.5-inch cooker, you can get a small tarp that you lay over the top. And all you have to do is just make sure you cover the lid just overlapping down over the seam where it meets the middle cooking section. And that will keep the rain out of your 22.5-inch smoker. Now, out of desperation, some people have actually drilled a small hole in the bottom of the charcoal bowl to let water escape. I have not done that. I don't think I would ever do that. You can do it if you wish. Just a small weep hole would get the job done, but I don't really see the point of leaving my cooker out in the rain. And honestly, if you're cooking in a heavy rain, that's probably not a good time to be cooking. If you get caught in a rain like that while you're cooking, you're better off trying to jury-rig some kind of a patio umbrella over your cooker to keep the rain off the lid. But once you're done cooking and the thing's cooled down, you should move it out of the rain or put some kind of a waterproof tarp or garbage bag over to keep the rain out. So I hope this provides some rationale for why the cooker is the way it is. It may not be perfect in this regard, but it is what it is, and I think it does make pretty good sense to keep that moisture inside the cooker when you're cooking, although it does create a little bit of a problem if you leave it out in the rain. So try not to do that if you can, based on the tips I just provided. I want to thank you for watching this video. I appreciate you very much. I would ask you to please like and subscribe, and if you have any questions or comments about this video, please feel free to leave them down below. I really appreciate it, and it helps others understand what's going on. It helps me understand what you're thinking about my videos. So thank you very much for leaving your comments. And until next time, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.